Greetings. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how Rome changes from a republic to an empire. Now, an empire is where one particular place seems to have a lot of landholding properties over a vast area of land, and Rome is probably the most famous for this. Rome was not exactly the safest place in the world to live, and around 70 BC, the Greek politician and orator, somebody who talks to crowds and member of the government, Cicero, encouraged Rome to become a better place, to have a more civil society. Not that they were going to stop conquering and attacking people or anything like that, but within Rome, he wanted to have a more civil society. One in particular Roman military leader was named Julius Caesar, and he was very famous because he never lost a battle on the battlefield. He was responsible for conquering many tribes in the Gaul area, which would be, where we consider Germany today. And he was really beloved by the Roman people because of his military success. Now, in addition to Caesar's success on the battlefield, he also had political aspirations as well. And what I mean by aspirations is that he wanted to change the way that the Roman government worked. So there were two other people who were very powerful and wealthy in Rome at the time. One was named Pompey, and the other was named Marcus Crassus. And these people will become important later on as well. But the three of them together, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, created what was known as the Triumvirate. And the three of them said that once they had finished some of their major battles, they would get together and they would fight off the Senate, who they believed had way too much power. At first, things seemed to go well between the three men, but eventually there was a fallout between Caesar and Pompey. The story goes that Pompey was jealous of how popular and beloved Caesar had become by the Roman people, and he was worried that Caesar was going to eventually become the king of Rome. So Pompey asked that he demanded that Caesar resign from his military post and come back to Rome and face charges. And Caesar was worried that if he did this, he would immediately be arrested. So he brought his army into Rome. Now, this was considered a major offense. The Roman army was so powerful, they weren't allowed to come anywhere near the city gates for fear of somebody using the army to sack Rome, basically, the actual Roman army. And the dividing line where the army was not allowed to cross was called the Rubicon River. And that's why we have a famous saying that when somebody has crossed the Rubicon, meaning that they have made they've entered a place they're not supposed to go and there's going to be consequences. So Pompey and Caesar wind up creating a civil war, basically, and Caesar is victorious. He winds up chasing Pompey around the world for about a year until he finally catches him in Egypt. And while in Egypt, this is where Caesar meets Cleopatra, and then there's a whole story behind that, which we'll cover as well. After Caesar's return to Rome, Caesar was granted the title of dictator for 10 years, which was later turned into dictator for life. And some of the senators were really worried about Caesar becoming too powerful. And so some of this, on the holiday of the Ides of March, a bunch of senators got together and they decided to assassinate Caesar by stabbing him in the back. One in particular senator who participated in the plot to kill Caesar was a man named Brutus. And he really believed that the Roman people were going to understand why the Senate did what they did, but the Senate didn't. But the people didn't. They actually wanted revenge, and they were furious about what happened. Two of the people who wind up coming into power after Caesar's death is another one of Caesar's assistants named Mark Antony, and then Caesar's nephew, Octavian. And Octavian and Mark Antony worked together to track down Brutus and the other conspirators and wind up killing them. However, Mark Antony doesn't come back to Rome. He actually goes to Egypt, where he encounters Cleopatra once again, and they wind up having a very, shall we say, tumultuous love story, which we'll cover later as well. Eventually, Rome is going to declare war on Egypt because they felt that Mark Antony was a traitor. Octavian Caesar is going to lead Rome to victory once again. And Octavian at this point becomes Augustus Caesar, the very first emperor of Rome. Okay, so Julius Caesar, contrary to popular belief, was not the first emperor or was ever an emperor of Rome. That title went to his nephew Octavian, who changed his name to Augustus.